Welcome to Fairfield Public Access Television. I'm Susan Kessel, and we're here today doing our show, Opening Fairfield Doors. My co-host, Connie Boyer and I, and special guest, John Connett. Welcome, Connie. Great job.
Oh, gee, thanks.
I didn't know you did that.
Well, I don't do it very well.
Well, I'm impressed. We're here today, and we're sitting in Barhydt Chapel. A lot of people don't get out to Barhydt Chapel, so we thought we would share with the community hearing the pipe organ.
And we're going to learn about John and some of the projects that he's going to be working on and some of the past ones that he's worked on.
Yes. John Connett, you live in Fairfield.
I do indeed. I've lived here for about 3 years now.
3 years. What brought you to Fairfield?
A marriage.
A marriage?
Yes, I married a local gal, and at the time she was quite involved with the community, and I was not involved in the community where I was coming from, Chicago. And I sort of had to put my feet where my mouth was. I thought I would follow my wife when she had an opportunity, and I just had to follow my feet.
So I'm going to have to ask who the wife is.
Carrie Craver was her former name.
Okay. Well, we're glad you're in Fairfield. A lot of people would be really familiar with what you have done for our community, and that is fix the clock tower in the courthouse clock. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes. I remember that as a kid growing up, and I was telling John how wonderful it is to hear that again. And so maybe he could tell us a little bit of the process of what he went through to get that up and running again.
Well, it's sort of finding an awful lot of little pieces and putting an awful lot of little pieces together. There was a broken motor, and there was a broken gear in one of the faces, and there was a piece of trim strip on the south face that stopped the minute hand from going around and would cause the thing to jump every so often. And it was sort of finding all those pieces. And of course I couldn't even look at the trim strip. I had to go across the street with a telescope and look up at the telescope and sort of sneak in from behind, because there's nothing around here that goes up to the outside face of the clock. And so I had to fix the gears on the face of the clock itself from inside without taking it apart. And it's just sort of a lot of little pieces. And just finding the pieces and eventually putting it together.
What's your background in order to be able to know to do this? Are you naturally mechanically inclined, or you are a watchmaker, or what?
Well, I was trained as an electrical engineer, scholastically, and worked for the telephone system for 30-odd years, and designing telephone switching systems. And my family is kind of mechanically oriented and has been in the fixing kind of business and inventing kind of business, and it's sort of in my family from that nature. And it's just sort of having a desire to fix things that don't seem to work.
I think that's amazing. Did this involve getting outside, or that high up space? Did that bother you? Did you have to be out in the open, or?
Well, to replace the light bulbs, I did have to be on the outside. It was sort of outside the mesh that there is on the tower. But most of the tower has a metal work mesh that protects birds from coming in and people from flying out. And it's, even though you have a long set of stairs to climb, it is a very protected area from that standpoint.
How long did it take to fix that?
Elapsed time, it was about 6 months to find all the pieces. Actual amount of hours that spent on it, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 hours, something like that. I think total amount of work. It was spread out over a lot of time.
I imagine the pieces were no longer in existence, or hard to find.
The motor that runs it, the company in Chicago that used to make that motor, doesn't anymore. And through a lot of telephone calls, I found eventually the company that bought all the leftover motors at the time that the company stopped making that particular style. And in another one of the motors, the one that drives the clanker, the bell clanger, had burned out. And so I had to find somebody to do that, and I found the company that makes or rebuilds the motors that this particular company used to work on. And you just happened to find the right one at the right time.
Wow.
How long ago was the company sold that built it? So how many years did you have to, were we talking about going back?
I don't know, but it's probably 15, 20 years at least since they stopped making that style of motor. I tried to find a replacement from other manufacturers. I called all over the place, and just a lot of dead ends.
You had to persevere in, I'm sure, in finding out the right person to get a hold of to get this. I'm sure you're in great demand.
Nah.
Well, he will be after this.
A lot of places I've been able to fix little things and here at the school, and so a lot of people say, "Geez, I'm glad you're around," and let's fix this and fix that.
Well, it's getting to be kind of a lost art. Everything is throwaway now.
It is, and I kind of feel sad about that.
Do you fix your toasters and things at home?
Oh yes, yep.
Uh-oh, now he will
If
be
it's
busy.
if it's old enough to be repairable, and a lot of today's things are not repairable.
Right, now they're being made to throw away, which is sad.
Computers and calculators and telephones, and it doesn't work. Throw it away.
What are some of the other things that you've worked on and repaired? I mean, the wide range of things, should I ask?
Oh, golly. Plumbing pieces and electrical appliances. And I have been working for about 10 years on rebuilding player pianos, the old-fashioned pneumatic kind, and reed organs. So it's kind of related to the kind of work that's involved with this organ. And several expression pianos, which are player pianos which are designed to play louder and softer according to the expression of how the piece was actually played. And I've rebuilt a number of those, and it's really been exciting to see how some of these old things really do work. It looks almost like a Rube Goldberg gone mad.
Do you rebuild pianos? I've got one in my living room.
I do not.
Oh, darn.
I do the player, but not the piano work itself.
And so do you play also yourself?
Well, when I was about so high, I used to play a little bit of piano and a little bit of violin.
You play the
But
melody
that's-
line like I do.
Not even that. Not even that. I can do chords, I can run the scale, but that's about it today. It's a skill that I have not followed through on. I just didn't have the interest to perform that way, and so I haven't.
I was just thinking as we were kind of warming up here,
You were warming up.
yeah, well, I was warming up. When I was younger, of course, I used to fight with my mother about taking piano lessons, and I learned organ a little bit. But boy, playing this, and I've never sat down at this before, but I can sure see why somebody would just really get excited. The power in this thing just kind of is really exciting, and I think that's experience young kids don't get these days, And, I know the churches have had a hard time finding people that can play the organs. So if we could expose some young people to an instrument like this, it might make a difference in our future. I think we should work on that.
In the past, I speak cooperatively, I guess, students from Iowa State, Iowa City, come down to give concerts and play on this instrument. And has been quite successful in the past, but that program has kind of fallen by the wayside, I guess.
So we are here in Barhydt, sitting in front of the pipe organ, the original pipe organ in this church, I'm assuming, which is how old?
This instrument is 1966. I don't know how old the chapel is.
1966. Okay.
That wouldn't be the original
No.
pipe organ in here.
No.
I don't know the history of what might have been the original or what the replacement process was.
Okay, so I know that when you have something like this in your community, it's a real treasure. And if at all possible, it'll be wonderful to save it, even though we are losing Barhydt Chapel as a building here. And I know that Art Atkinson has come forth and is providing his efforts for our community to save this and for somewhere in our community. And that's how we got a hold of you. And M.U.M is graciously going to pay for the creating up and saving of this pipe organ. And also there were, what do I want to say, evaluations, appraisals done just this yesterday to determine how it is. Tell us how it is.
Well, it's an instrument that it's been beat up by the temperature changes that it has experienced over the past. There were times when the heat was not on in this building, and that's not too friendly to the instrument itself. And I've replaced a number of leather bellows already on this instrument, and to keep it going. It does play in all its ranks now. There's several pipes that are missing. We have 2 pipes out because we had to dig birds out of them, and it didn't survive too well. The pipes didn't survive. The birds didn't survive either.
Now, I know the other day Tom Stanley and Ken Norton and I were here and looking at this, and we were worried that maybe there had been mice, evidence of mice, but you said it was probably bats.
Probably both.
Both. Okay.
We have had bats in this building for quite a while. It's interesting to give a performance here and have bats flying around.
I've been here in the evening when there's bats squeaking. It's not kind of creepy.
I'm used to it because I have them at home all the time. So.
And you're in a new house.
I know.
And there has been evidence within the instrument itself of nibbling at the corners of some of the leather pouches, and those are some of the pouches that I've replaced.
So what is the value of a pipe organ like this?
One is the value of the instrument as an instrument to play, and the other one is the value that it might have on the used market. On the used market, because it is so difficult to package and ship and move from one place to another and then put it back up, that the value of the instrument is not very much. But the value to replace this represents probably pretty close to $500,000.
Ooh.
Seriously? I had no clue.
$250,000 at least, and maybe as high as $500,000.
Wow.
This is a fairly sizey instrument. Not the biggest, not the most ranks. It's not a clap auditorium instrument with its 53 ranks or whatever.
So we do have a real treasure here that we want to keep.
Oh, yes.
And I know, being involved with the Civic Center, which is going to be built in our community in the future, that if at all possible, we would like to incorporate it.
That would be wonderful.
But it's hard to do that when you're designing something and making things work, and if it's possible, we will. But we're just glad right now that it's going to be kept in the community somewhere, and that you're doing your part to take it apart. And I know at a meeting you told us that you were already getting crates.
Yes,
boxes?
We have some boxes for putting the treble pipes in, the shorter pipes, to protect them, principally to keep the bugs out of them. There's not only metal in these and wood, but there's also wool. There's a felting in some of these pipes, and to protect them against wasps, spiders.
Oh.
Is there any kind of packing material that you need that the community might be able to help you with?
Gobs of tissue paper.
Tissue paper.
White tissue paper?
Yeah, white tissue paper. I have a pile of it right now, and one of the evaluators, appraisers, said, "Well, you're going to need about 3 times that amount."
Or more.
Or more. And then at some point we'll end up crating a lot of the larger pipes, and I don't even know the needs for that yet.
Now, I know that Art, at the last time I spoke with him, was still looking for a place for storage, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are.
And what kind of climate do you need for storage?
Not so much steady temperature, but dry and mouse-proof.
Bat-proof.
Bat-proof.
Bird-proof.
Bird-proof. And maybe people-proof.
That's true. That's true. So how many pieces are there?
Oh, gosh. With the 20-odd ranks and 60 pipes each, that's over 1,000 pipes. The number of wires, there's about as many wires, more than as many wires as there are pipes. So I'm talking probably 2,000 wires that need to be connected and disconnected and identified so that we know
Now,
where they go back in.
Are you putting this back together again?
I hope to. I hope to have that.
So you're going to need careful labeling.
Oh, yes. I'll need to trace my tracks and remember every step I take. And of course, at my age, remembering every step I
You
take
could be in trouble.
could be interesting.
No, we won't. I have confidence in you after the
Maybe we
clock.
need
a
a
lot
little
of paper out
laptop, somebody with a laptop that can be your secretary and an Excel spreadsheet.
I'm going to have a piece of paper and pencil.
And we also talked with our cameraman, Richard, about possibly videotaping
Oh, wonderful.
and identifying just to be helpful record.
It would. And then when I come up with a piece of pipe,
Where
does this go? I can look at a video and say, there it is right there.
How long do you think it'll take you to take this apart?
I'm probably talking hundreds of hours. Elapsed time, I'm hoping to get it done. Everybody else hopes that I'll be able to get it done in about a month's time. But we're talking basically about a month's work of fairly solid work.
And will this be a one-man show, or
It will be.
do you need help, or
At times it
would
will be a one-person
hindrance?
show because of identifying and just the meticulous identification of every wire that I take off so that I know where to put it back on. But the other portion is there's pieces of this, like some of the larger, longer pipes, and some of the 16-foot ranks. I was talking with a builder last night, and he said some of those can weigh 200 pounds, and I'm not going to pick 200 pounds up.
Wow.
And so when I see this 16-foot piece of 200 pounds glaring me in the face, I'm going to need some help.
Yes.
So if somebody out there wants to help, do they need to call you or
Sure.
somebody else? Or okay, so call John if you got some big, strong arms.
Or if
No
you have
extra time.
a nice place for storage or some tissue paper or anything else that you think we might need here, give us a call.
There's one unique need that I have is of the storage space, and we would like to store the pipes vertically. And since we have a 16-foot pipe out there,
We need a 16.
we need a 16-foot high space to put it in, or maybe 17 or 18. But that's the kind of thing that we need. But that's not for the whole space. It's just a couple pipes that are that long.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that kind of space that we need.
So you'll be getting started fairly soon, and maybe we'll give our cameraman a break and we'll have him move up closer and we can take a look at the insides of this and maybe have Connie play some more, show us some more.
I think I've chopped it up enough.
Okay.
Okay, we're now sitting at the instrument, and John, even though he says he doesn't play, is actually going to play for us. And he's going to really kind of show us the basics of this instrument. So, as Richard pointed out, we can't talk and play at the same time, so John's going to explain just a little bit about what he's going to do. Particularly, we're going to start, I guess, and work our way up. We're starting with the feet down here. We've got several pedals underneath us.
It looks like a keyboard more than several pedals.
Right. I mean, that's really what it is a keyboard, but obviously you play it with your feet. And so why don't we just start there, John?
Okay. On the pedals, I forgot how many, about 2.5 octaves worth of notes. And I have black notes and white notes, naturals and sharps and flats. And what I'm going to do is just hold one note down, and I will pull each one of these different stops out and give you a flavor of what the tones given by the instrument are.
What's a stop?
A stop would be basically one set of pipes, one kind of sound.
Okay.
Whether it's a bassoon kind of sound or different, that's the same note that I'm pushing with the pedal. Okay. And then you can combine these in any way. That I could pull those two notes out, those two stops out, and have two different tones with the same note that I'm pushing with my toe. I'm going to just run through these. That's a mixture that I played in the last, which is actually two sets of pipes.
Okay.
That I played at the same time. And then in the choir, and then tremolo, principal. With the same key. And then up above, piccolo, gedeckt, and then there's all kinds of transfer controls in here so that I can play on one keyboard and actually play the notes that are on another rank.
And you mean on a different keyboard? Is that what you mean?
Keyboard here. Mm-hmm. So that I can pull the pipes of different ranks together onto one keyboard.
And what are these things, these numbered things under here, these buttons?
These would presets that allow me to set different combinations in here, so that when I'm changing the sound of the music that's being played, rather than going up and doing all this at the same time that you're playing, you just hit one of these presets and bang, the change has been made.
It looks rather challenging when you only have two hands to manage all of this.
You need about 5 people back here.
An organist really is a multi-brained person. They're thinking 3 different themes: the left hand, the right hand, and the foot, the pedals. And they're also thinking, what kind of a sound do I want to make? Because you don't have the dynamic kind of control that you have on a piano. You play lightly, you play heavy, you can vary the sound that way. But in an organ, you must pull or push in the different stops to create the different kinds of sounds that you have. A note is either on or off. It is either on or off. That's the only capability that you have.
Now, on your feet again one more time, there are, besides the notes, you have 3 pedals. Mm-hmm. And can you explain those for us?
I can. There's 2 of them control the opening of the doors on the louvers above. Okay.
Why?
To give a different sound.
You want to do that again one more time so Richard can get that on the camera? Open them up. There you go. And do it one more time.
Yeah, the door isn't quite closing. Well, all right. Well, it's supposed to close.
See, I'm not even sure I knew that was part of the organ. The wood.
There, you can see some sound there changing.
Yeah.
So it gave it a little bit more full sound when the doors came open. So one pedal is for the left side and one is for the right?
Mm-hmm. One is called the choir and one is called the swell.
And don't you have 3 of them down there?
The third one is a variable stop, which allows me to play a particular chord, say, and it opens up different numbers of ranks. It'd be just a few ranks. And then as
Okay, so you created that sound just by pushing
Just by
that,
pushing the
changing that, or I should say changing that sound by pushing on that pedal. Oh, that's
So
incredible.
as I move the pedal down, another rank of notes would be played with the same press. So it gives you a little bit of variable expression.
What are those pipes made out of?
They're made out of tin and lead, mostly. The speckled nature that you see is made by a specific mixture of tin and lead. And then the longer pipes that look as if they're galvanized pipe, they're made out of zinc. It's very soft metal, all of it is. They're the types of things that if you don't hold these things properly, they will bend and the sound is gone. They're designed to vibrate.
And I'm just sitting here in awe looking at all those pieces.
Yeah, the magic that a pipe maker performs in making these each pipe is just wonderful.
Where would something be made like this today?
There's some small individual companies, and there's some large. There's one or two large ones. There's one up in Quebec, and there's several German organ makers that are still working today.
So mostly not in the United States, though, or are they mostly out of the country?
6 and 1.
Okay. Now this part of the organ here that we're sitting at, is this going to be hard to take out? Do you have to take it apart a lot?
The console itself will come out basically intact. I'll disconnect the wires from it. There's hundreds of wires connected to this thing. There's wires for each of these keyboards, 61 keys here. There's wires associated with each of the stops. There's wires associated with the transfers here. So there's probably several hundred wires on a cables that I'll disconnect, and then this physically can be picked up
With some help.
with some help.
Now, when we
Several
met,
members of the football team, maybe.
when we
Well,
met,
community service.
right? When we met one time recently, you talked about when it is put back together, this would be the appropriate time to redo something, to electrify it, to, what did you say?
Electronic controls have been coming into a lot of the new instruments, and the flexibility offered to an instrumentalist is a lot greater than you have with just the mechanical stops that we have here. We could add many stops to this very easily with electronic controls. Doing it manually would require physical hardware. And with electronic controls, we just program it right into the device itself.
So it could play by itself?
It can also be played electronically. It can be played by a computer with the musical instrument device interface, the MIDI
But
interface.
it still could be played
It
manually.
could be played manually. It could be played externally. It could be played from not so much a record, but a recording, but a stored sample of the piece to be played.
And how much do you think that would cost?
I don't know, to be
It's
honest.
hard to say.
It's hard to say. It's rather an elaborate computer that's involved. And of course they build in all kinds of protection to deal with electrostatic information, that problems, that kind of thing.
Have you worked on a pipe organ like this before, as far as taking it apart, or refurbishing, installing, or repairing, or?
I have been on the inside of several different instruments, but never to the degree that I will be working with this one. This is basically just a large player piano.
Very large.
Very large player piano. Player piano, I have 88 notes. In this one, I have thousands.
But you did say that next week you're going to out east to work on a carousel pipe organ or something?
A small carousel pipe organ, yes, that has, I think, about 25 different pipes on it. I did a rebuild on that one. That was purely mechanical. That was not electrical at all.
And that's in Pennsylvania?
This is outside Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
And is that for a business or a collector or?
This is for a person who owns it and is about to sell it, and he would like to have it working when he sells it.
You have very generously offered a lot of the time that you'll be spending on this is kind of donated. You will be paid by M.U.M, but at a very, very reduced rate. I mean, I can't imagine. It's because of the love that you have for this and for our community that you've talked about doing that, and that's great. Just like the town clock. I mean, to find someone and to have you love doing it so much, it is a gift of love to our community. So on behalf of the community, I want to say thank you.
And I'd like to say thank you too. And I expressed earlier, my husband said, be sure and tell him how much we appreciate the clock tower ringing again. And we live close to town, so we hear it, loud and clear, particularly in the summertime. And it's so wonderful to have that little, I can't even describe what it is, but to listen to it chime, and I always count.
I think I hear it from where I live too, and I do that too.
When I worked on that clock, I had no idea the feeling that this community had for that clock. That it's so much a part of this community. It was just unbelievable. I just saw it as something that didn't work.
Well, I think too it was something that we had forgotten. It hadn't worked for quite some time, and kind of had forgotten that its essence and kind of just this homey town feeling that it brought to us. And when it was back, it was like, oh yeah, we remember that, and how wonderful it is to hear it again. I think that was...
Yes, and actually, you use it a lot. I would find myself up a town all the time, and I'd look up there. I'd be in a hurry to get somewhere and think if I'm late, and I'd look up there and, oh, that's not right. So it's wonderful to actually have it correct.
And I understand there's a great deal of excitement in town with the possibilities of having the original shape of the tower restored. Yes. That's wonderful.
That's Lee Gobble's dream, and hopefully someday that will happen. And this, it's a dream to save this and have it in another building in our community. If it's not the Civic Center, we're going to find a home for it somewhere.
So if people are interested in donating or time, materials, etc., I guess they could... Space, they could contact Art Atkinson. I'm sure he's probably in the phone book, or get a hold of one of us and we'll at least get you the right connection.
Right.
That'd be fine. Do we want to take a break and go to another setting here?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, Connie, we are underneath the pipe organ, and this, I'm sure, will be the only time I'm ever underneath a pipe organ. And I'm thinking, if you're working down here a lot, you're going to be cramped. Do you work under here a lot?
I hope not.
And what
Actually, I don't. I don't spend that much time under here. Most of my time would be up above.
What is under here? What are these things?
Well, that is how the air is distributed to the pipes. What you have is the main air coming from a blower that is down in the basement. You can probably feel the vibrations and the sound. And the air comes up and is buffered in these wooden and leather boxes, so that when you play quick staccato types of notes, these reservoirs provide the amount of air required to give the proper amount of sound. I can open up one of these little trap doors.
I had no idea that you had to have air for this.
Those are magnets. that open and close bellows inside.
Magnets?
Those are magnets. The wires are controlling magnets that control the amount of air that goes into a bellow, a pneumatic bellow, which is inside of these wooden boxes that you see that open and close the valves to the pipes themselves. So that when you want the note to play, you open the valve, and when you want the note to stop, you close the valve.
Oh, this is really interesting. I'm glad you know what you're doing. I can't imagine. So this is a big part underneath, and we were talking about some pipes that start all the way at the bottom here, and how they go up and they fold, and we'll look at one of those outside here when we go in a minute. But how long is that one? Is that the long one?
That's the long one, which would be a 16-foot.
And the shortest one is?
Shortest one probably about 6 inches, 7 inches.
Okay.
And most of that is just the foot to mount the pipe itself. The actual length of the column that creates the sound is very short, half inch, probably at the most.
So I think we'll get out of here while we're safe from bats and take a look at the rest of it out there. So Connie, we're listening to those wooden things, right?
I think so.
When John started to play that, I felt it, but I thought it was a truck going by, a semi driving by.
No,
It's
they are
very deep.
Yes, a very deep sound. John, what were those called again?
Bourdon.
Bourdon.
There's an
Like
R in
board?
the Bourdon.
Okay, we got it.
Now we're going to take a look at the one over to the right that's along the curved one. And what is that called, John?
That's the principal. That's the principal.
John, now are those largest ones only played with the feet?
Yes. Only with the feet.
Once again, I'm really amazed when you look at this. It's something you just don't pay attention to. And here we have it right here in our community, and we want to save it. And again, Connie and I both thank you on behalf of the community for what you're able to do in helping us save this.
It's going to be quite a project. That's all I can say. And we'll be thinking about you when you're thick into this. And again, the more that people can contribute or help in any little way, I'm sure it would be greatly appreciated.
In the hands of an organist, this is the richest music. It's just magic can be performed by someone who can think and play an organ. It's just it's beautiful.
Well, it's wonderful, and I look forward to the day when we will first hear it again, when it's put back together, and we'll owe a lot of that to you, John. So thank you, John Connett. And we'll have a little ending music here to set the mood.
You want me to chop up a melody again?
Yes. We had to fade in, and now we're going to fade out.